Hello everyone, it's Brian, and today I'm doing a thread response entitled 5 Overplayed Songs That I Still Love. This thread was started by Gary at Physical Format Rock and Roll. And in case you don't know about that channel, that is, in my opinion, one of the premier channels in the vinyl community. It's top shelf, it's essential, you should be watching it. If you aren't, you're making a mistake. So go over there and watch the channel. I'll leave a link below. So because I live in Canada, I've been subjected to certain rules that govern broadcast in Canada on radio and television, etc. And that is what we colloquially call CanCon, which stands for Canadian Content. Those rules were devised by the Canadian Radio and Telecommunications Commission, known as the CRTC, and it determines what amount of Canadian content you will find on TV and radio. And it just so happens that currently, since 1999, 40% of all music broadcast, or all content I should say, broadcast on radio in Canada has to be Canadian in origin. Now those rules are different depending on format. So for example, if you're in a classical format or jazz, you can play less than 40%. For some strange reason, if you're a radio station on the border, for example, in Windsor, Ontario, right next to Detroit, you can play less than 40%. But generally speaking, right now it's 40%. It used to be less back in the 80s. But what that means is that we hear a lot of Canadian music. And I think overall that's a good thing, although some people criticize it. So that's just some background. So because of that, I decided I would Canadianize my thread response and only show 5 Canadian songs. Now, it has been noted in our house that when we get into the car, it's pretty much guaranteed that we're going to hear a song by Rush. Now, that could have to do with the fact that whatever radio station we are currently listening to, but the fact is we hear Rush all the time. And by and large, it's either going to be Tom Sawyer or The Spirit of Radio. So for this particular thread, I'm saying The Spirit of Radio is a song we hear a lot. I hear a lot, but I still love it. I think it's great. This is from Rush, of course, from Permanent Waves. And I'm going to give you some trivia about that song in case you don't know this. And maybe you don't know this. If you get out your copy of Permanent Waves and read the lyrics, below the lyrics you will see a little statement that says, inspired by the Spirit of Radio. In Toronto, alive and well so far. And that refers to a radio station whose tagline is the Spirit of Radio. And that station is CFNY 102.1, which was rebranded years ago as The Edge. It's a shadow of its former self, so it didn't last as Rush had hoped for. But this song was written for that station. And the funny thing is, it was written for that station at a time when they really didn't play Rush. But that station played a lot of really interesting music that you could really not hear anywhere else. So when you hear the song next time, and you hear Begin the Day with a Friendly Voice, a Companion Unobtrusive, they're talking about the personalities, the on-air personalities, of that radio station. And the whole song is about this. So anyway, next time you hear that song, remember that it's about a radio station. You may already know this. If you don't, well, that's fine. Another song that you could not get away from in Canada, and I have heard hundreds of times, is American Woman by the Guess Who. And yes, I still like the song. I still like the Guess Who. But I have to say, I don't really love Lenny Kravitz's cover version of the song. I think it loses something, especially maybe because he is American and the Guess Who are not. So it kind of makes more sense to come from a non-Canadian. But anyway, we hear this all the time up here. It's a staple of classic rock, the classic rock format, and I still like it. I think it's a great song. Next, because I often try to bring in Leonard Cohen to my videos, I'm going to mention a Leonard Cohen song called Hallelujah. And, you know, in this case, it's one of those songs where I think many people who know that song may never have heard the original version of that song, which appears on Various Positions from 1984, a record that was famously rejected by his American record label. But as of sometime around 1991, the song had already, no, maybe 2001, sometime 30 years ago, it had already been covered over 300 times. And I think that's just grown. So I think most people who know that song know the cover versions of it. And the funny thing is that after he recorded this version, he changed the lyrics because he famously had hundreds and hundreds of verses. And the story goes that John Cale, another favorite artist of mine, was going to record a version for the I'm Your Fan compilation, the tribute album to Leonard Cohen. And Leonard Cohen had given him all of these unpublished verses that John Cale then formed into a song and sang. And Jeff Buckley used John Cale's arrangement with those added verses without actually acknowledging the fact that he got it from John Cale to begin with. But the fact is that even Leonard Cohen has never sung this version on any live recording since the day this came out. So the lyrics on here are a little bit different from the lyrics that come later. So, but personally, I've heard this song so many times because I've played this record so many times. I've heard the cover versions so many times. Some are better than others, but I would say I'm not tired of that song. I still love it. I think it's a essential Leonard Cohen song. I couldn't make this a Canadian response without mentioning Neil Young, and on this record, of course, we have Heart of Gold. And, you know, if my dad were still alive, I'd have to remind him yet again that Boney M. did not write Heart of Gold. But, of course, Neil Young did. And I still like this song. I still love this song. I think it's a really good song. I would say it's probably maybe not my favorite Neil Young song, but I've heard it so many times, and I still like it. And for the last one, I thought I would pick a kind of a power pop song that's, I'm sure some people will know. It's from The Pursuit of Happiness. This is their album called Love Junk. And the song on here is I'm an Adult Now, which got a lot of airplay back in the day. In fact, that's an older song than that record. It was originally released on a 12-inch single back in '85. They re-recorded it for this record. So if you can track down that 12-inch single, it has a different version of that. It's similar. It's just it sounds a little rougher to me. But The Pursuit of Happiness redid it for this album in 1988 called Love Junk, which is great. I've seen them in concert. They haven't recorded anything recently, and I think Mo Berg is the only member left. I think they perform from time to time, but really good power pop. I would check out all their records. It's kind of really excellent power pop. Good stuff to listen to. And this was played a lot, and there was actually a really cool video of it, that video for that song that was shot on Queen Street West, which is quite good. So, as I said at the top, check out Gary's channel. I'll put a link to his Thread video at least, and thanks for watching, and I hope to see other videos on this topic. I'll talk to you next time.